All right, let's jump right in. You ever notice how your memory doesn't really work like a video camera? It doesn't faithfully record every single moment. It's not a perfect recording, right? It's more like a storyteller, carefully picking and choosing which moments get the spotlight. Today, we're going to dig into a fascinating mental shortcut that proves our memories are really just edited highlights, not the full replay.
I mean, think about this. You've just had the most amazing 2-week vacation. It was perfect. But then, on the very last day, everything goes wrong. You miss your flight, you get sick, whatever. Suddenly, when people ask, "How was your trip?" the first thing you think of is that disaster at the end. Why does that one bad moment completely overshadow all the good ones? It feels totally illogical, but, well, it turns out it's actually super predictable.
Here's a classic example. You've got 12 fantastic days of sunshine, great food, amazing experiences. But on day 13, boom, food poisoning. The last day is just a complete write-off. I mean, logically, the math just doesn't add up, right? 12 good days should easily beat one bad one. But our memory storyteller doesn't care about the math. It's like it takes a giant spotlight and shines it right on that miserable ending, and suddenly the whole trip gets filed away as bad.
So, why do our brains pull this trick on us? To really get it, we have to look at the science. And believe it or not, the answer comes from a super clever and kind of mean experiment run by the Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman. And it involves nothing more than some painfully cold water. Okay, so here's how it worked. In what we'll call trial A, people had to stick their hand in painfully cold water for a full 60 seconds. Not fun. Then, in trial B, they did the exact same thing, 60 seconds in that freezing water. But then, they had to keep their hand in for another 30 seconds while the water warmed up by just 1 degree. Now, I really want you to get this. Trial B is, by every objective measure, worse. It has all the same pain of trial A, plus 30 more seconds of discomfort. Okay, so after putting people through this, the researchers asked a really simple question. If you have to repeat one of these trials, which one do you choose? I mean, the logical choice is trial A, obviously. It's shorter, less total suffering. It's a no-brainer. But you can probably guess where this is going. And get this is where it gets wild. A whopping 2/3 of people chose to repeat trial B, the longer, more painful one. This result just makes no sense from a rational point of view. It's completely backward. So what on earth is going on here?
And this wasn't a mistake. It's not a glitch in the matrix. It's a totally predictable shortcut our brain takes every single time. Our brain isn't messing up. It's just following a very specific kind of lazy rule for how it summarizes and remembers an experience.
And that shortcut has a name, the peak end rule. Here's what it says. Our memory doesn't average out all the good and bad moments. No, that's way too much work. Instead, it grabs just 2 snapshots. The most intense moment, that's the peak, and the very final moment, the end. In the cold water experiment, the peak pain was identical in both trials, but because trial B ended a little bit better, the memory of the whole thing felt less awful.
And this goes hand in hand with another wild idea called duration neglect. Basically, it means the length of the experience. Our brain just throws it out. It doesn't really care. Those extra 30 seconds of pain in trial B, almost totally ignored by the part of the brain that forms the final memory. All that mattered was the peak and the end.
So, to really wrap your head around this, Kahneman came up with this brilliant way of thinking about it. He said it's like there's a battle going on between 2 different selves inside your mind, and these 2 selves care about completely different things.
So let's meet these 2 characters. First, you've got the experiencing self. This is you, in the moment. It feels every single agonizing second of cold water, every bit of pleasure. For this self, trial B was definitely absolutely worse. But then, you've got the remembering self. This is the storyteller, the boss. It's the one that writes the history books of your life, and it just wants a simple story. Because trial B had a better ending, it wrote a better story for it. And this is the absolute key, it's the remembering self that gets to decide what you do next time. It's in charge.
All right, so this is way more than just a weird thing that happens with cold water. Let's look at how this rule is secretly shaping our world, from our health to the way businesses treat us, and even to how we learn.
Okay, let's talk about something nobody loves, a colonoscopy. Researchers found that if doctors just extend the procedure by a minute, leaving the scope still for a moment, which isn't painful, just a bit uncomfortable, patients remember the whole thing is way less awful. That slightly less terrible ending makes them much more likely to come back for their next screening. Think about that. Their body went through a longer procedure, but their memory of it was better. It's wild.
Or how about this? You've definitely felt this one. Customer service. You could be on hold for an hour, just fuming. But if that agent who finally answers is super helpful, solves your problem, and gives you a discount at the end, what do you remember? You remember that great ending. That amazing resolution completely rewrites the story of the horrible wait you just went through.
You see it in the classroom, too. A teacher could run a really tough, even frustrating class, but if they manage to stick the landing, ending with a great story, a funny joke, or a real aha moment, the students walk away thinking, you know what? That was actually a pretty good class, all because of how it ended.
And this all comes back to a really powerful idea, captured in this quote. We think we're these rational beings keeping a logical spreadsheet of all the good and bad moments, but we're not. We are editors. Our remembering self is a ruthless editor, chopping out all the boring bits and just keeping the juicy parts, the peak and the end.
So to boil it all down, your memory's editing process is actually super simple. It follows 3 basic rules. First, find the most intense moment, good or bad. That's the peak. Second, zoom in on the very last thing that happened. That's the end. And third, pretty much ignore everything else, especially how long the whole thing lasted. Peak, end, done.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's simple, but it's huge. Endings matter a lot. A really good ending can rescue an otherwise boring or even bad experience. And just like with that vacation, a really bad ending can completely ruin something that was, for the most part, wonderful.
So that leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. Now that you know you've got a storyteller in your head, one who's obsessed with peaks and especially endings, you get to make a choice. You can either be a passive observer of the stories it tells, or you can start directing them. So how are you going to use that? How will you start writing better endings for yourself?